Hello and welcome to another Q-SYS software release. This time it's Q-SYS Designer Software version 10.1. So what's new? Well, let's start with some hardware. We've got new QIO models to support larger channel counts, support network redundancy and device redundancy. New cameras in the NC series, perfect for larger spaces and smaller spaces as well. What about software? New ways of getting plugins and other assets with the new Q-SYS library. Great solutions for large systems that need a lot of devices in the inventory and new core-to-core paging features. So let's look at this in a little bit more detail, starting with the new hardware. Let's talk about the new QIO models. So far, the QIO series has focused on small form factor I/O devices, which are great for bringing on a small number of audio channels or GPIO in and out of your Q-SYS system. But with 10.1, we're announcing 3 new QIO models, each of which supports large channel counts and GPIO and network and hardware redundancy in a 1U form factor. The redundancy features mean that these new QIOs are perfect for mission-critical systems where you want zero downtime. They have LAN A and LAN B, just like all of the Q-SYS cores, and you can connect these to different networks, which means you can lose a network and have no audio dropouts. In addition, you could have 2 of the same model of QIO right next to each other with the inputs and outputs parallel between them, and that way you could even lose a QIO unit and lose a network and still the system keeps going. And of course, this can all be used alongside Q-SYS core redundancy. Other new hardware in Designer 10.1 includes 2 new NC series cameras. The first of these is the NC Pro 15X, and this takes Q-SYS conferencing into even higher end systems where you really need a broadcast quality camera. Now, this is a full Q-SYS peripheral, but the hardware is built by Canon, which means that the video quality is everything you would expect from a high-end Canon camera. You're getting a 1-inch image sensor, which works with the upgraded lens to let in a lot more light for lower levels of noise. You've also got Canon's dual pixel autofocus, which actually allows every pixel on the sensor to contribute to autofocus data, and you should find this works much more reliably in challenging autofocus situations. It also has many other features you'd expect to find on a broadcast quality camera, like built-in neutral density filters and a tally light so presenters know which camera to look at. See that one? We've also got another new camera model for smaller spaces or spaces where you need a wider field of view. The NC90G2 is a replacement for the existing NC110, but it delivers much better video quality and dynamic range and dramatically increased zoom performance thanks to a much higher resolution sensor. As well as the upgraded sensor, the NC90 also has onboard AI video processing and a microphone array. The microphone array can detect who is speaking and frame them, and you also have the option of a tile view, which can pick up to 9 participants simultaneously. Of course, both of these new cameras can be used alongside existing Q-SYS cameras, so you can choose the right cameras for any space. Next, we're going to look at some important software improvements in Designer 10.1, starting with the inventory. Now, sometimes if you're working on a really big system, you're going to need to add a lot of the same Q-SYS peripheral to the inventory, which usually means hitting the plus button and then clicking on that device quite a few times until you've got enough of them, okay? Say you have a lot of NV encoders and decoders, for example. Or it might be that you've got lots of CXQ amplifiers, say you've got 50 of them in a stadium project, but then each of those has the same model of loudspeaker. That's a lot of the same thing to add to the inventory, and it can get a bit cumbersome, but that's all changed in the new version. Now in 10.1, if you control and click on an item as you select it to add it to the inventory, you can add more than one at once with this new Add Multiple New Inventory Items dialog box. Just type in the name that you want your new inventory items to have and choose a quantity. You can also choose a inventory location here as well. When you click Add, you'll find that those are added to the inventory. But what if you want to customize the naming scheme here? No problem. In the dialog box, there's some examples of special patterns you can use to change the way numbers are incremented and do a few other things. For example, if I want to change how my numbers increment, I can copy this pattern and put it into my new device name. In this example, I'm just pasting in that pattern and I'm changing the letter N to 1 because I want these devices to start with the number 1. Now when I press add, you'll see that that naming scheme has been applied. Next, we've got some enhancements to the long-standing remote paging functionality, making it a lot more flexible and scalable. So with paging in Q-SYS, you've always been able to do remote paging, where you could have a paging system on one core and a paging system on a different core, and they could work separately, but also one core can page to the other core's destinations. And this is great in places like maybe theme parks, where you've got centralized elements of the design and you've also got smaller elements. What I'm going to show you here is an update in 10.1 where this just becomes much more flexible. So firstly, the way you would do this in the past is you would have command buttons on your virtual page station. Now, command buttons have to be set up to do a specific job in the Q-SYS administrator. So here I would come into commands. I'm going to make a new one. Let's have a PA page command. And I'm going to say this is a live page. Now, what I can see here is my local zones, but I can also see here my remote zones. So this is on different core, and I've already set up in Administrator the names of my remote tags. And also, if I go to this remote cores Q-SYS Administrator, and I go to the PA zones, you can see that those tags exist here. Now, let's say this is a hotel. So I've got the lobby, the restaurant, the gym, the stairs, and then these can be tagged. So for example, I've got an all tag, which is all of them, ground floor tag, maybe an amenities tag, that kind of thing. So here I'm going to say I've got a new command, and this is just going to page all in the remote zone. And let's call this like all remote. Okay, so this is already taking up quite a bit of time. Then I can go to the page station. Then I have to go and say, right, this page station button A is all remote. Okay, update. And then I will find that if I go back to here, I can press button A, I can press talk, and there on the remote core, we see all of those zones light up. Fine. Okay, so the problem here is that what if I want to be much more specific? What if I want to have command buttons for every signal tag on the remote core? Well, I could do that, but I might have hundreds of zones and I don't want to have hundreds of command buttons. And in fact, you can't have hundreds of command buttons. It would also mean that I have to set up each command button individually and be very specific about it, and that doesn't leave much flexibility for the person just using the paging system to be more ad hoc. So what do we have in 10.1? Well, now what we can do is we can go into our page station and we can add remote group zones. And this just means that the actual person using the paging system can have the flexibility to page where they want. So for example, remote 1, that's the name of this remote core. This is actually a drop down. So if I had lots of remote cores, I could choose which one. And then here I can choose which tag I want. And I could actually have these set up already where I've got amenities here, I've got the ground floor here, or I've got all there. And I can change this while this is running, right? For different buttons to do different things. So yeah, it just means it's a lot easier. Let's page amenities, and we see the restaurant and gym. Okay, we could page all just like that. And we see they all light up. Or of course, we could just be paging the ground floor just as easily. Okay, so yeah, that's what we have now in 10.1, just a lot more flexibility. If you do a lot of paging with remote cores and a large number of zones, I know some of you do, this is going to make life a lot easier. Now, of course, a huge part of Q-SYS are our technology partners and Q-SYS plugins, which lets you almost natively control third-party devices inside Q-SYS. These have always been discoverable and downloadable from the Asset Manager, which is built into the Q-SYS Designer software. Now, that's great if you're a programmer, but if you're a consultant or you're in pre-sales or design and you need to see what integrations are available, but not actually download them, it's actually a bit cumbersome having them only inside the Q-SYS Designer software. So for that reason, we're launching the Q-SYS Library, which is an external website that anybody can access to browse all of our technology partner integrations and other Q-SYS assets. But if you have a QSC ID, you can log in, add whatever you want to your library, and then in your Q-SYS Designer software, it will download those, install those, and keep them up to date. Let's check it out. Anybody can access the Q-SYS library at library.qsys.com, or if you're inside Q-SYS Designer, go to Tools, Open Q-SYS Library, or you can click on the library icon at the top. Once you're there, you'll see that the library shows you all of our partner integrations that are fully vetted and supported for use with Q-SYS. Feel free to share this with anybody else who works on your team who doesn't use Q-SYS Designer but wants to stay up to date with our latest technology partner integrations. If you log in with your QSC ID, you'll then be able to add items to your own personal library. Next, we need to find the items we want to add to our library. Let's do a search. Here we can search by a keyword. We can also search by asset type, which includes things like plugins or Lua modules. We can filter by tags, which lists out device functionality such as display or control devices. Here I've chosen lighting. I can also filter by a specific manufacturer if there's a certain manufacturer that I want to get plugins for. Once we've found our device, we can then click Learn More to see reviews, videos, and other information about this integration. To add an item to your library, just click Checkout. You can then download it directly from the library page, but if you go back to the Q-SYS Designer Software, you'll find the Asset Installer section. Here, it synchronizes with everything added to your QSC ID library and lets you install it all in one place. It will also list other installed assets and let you update them or check the status of those assets. And it will list any assets that are installed in the currently open design, giving you a one-stop shop for updating everything. And you're going to see some more videos on Q-SYS Library coming very soon. We're going to be updating our existing control training and also making some other videos that go into more depth on how anyone can use the Q-SYS Library. Now, the Q-SYS Designer user interface has another very exciting quality of life improvement in 10.1.
Jasper, didn't you know there's horizontal scrolling now in 10.1?
Anyway, that's it from me. Of course, do go and download the new software. Check out the release notes because there's always new features and other fixes that I haven't had time to cover here. And I'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot.